If a city wants to swallow you whole, it doesn't start with teeth. It starts by making you feel invisible. Ethan Cole realized that exactly 11 minutes after stepping off the midnight bus into New Haven. Rain came down in silver sheets, cold enough to soak through his thrift store hoodie in seconds, turning the cracked sidewalk slick beneath his sneakers. Neon signs buzzed overhead like dying stars, painting the street in bruised shades of pink and blue. He stood there with one duffel bag, a dead phone battery, and a folded piece of paper with an address that suddenly felt more like a joke than a destination. New Haven was supposed to be his reset. New city, new start. Maybe even answers about the father who had vanished before Ethan was born, leaving behind nothing but a name and a final letter Ethan's mother had hidden in a box for 22 years. Find him, it said. So Ethan did what emotionally unstable people with abandonment issues apparently did best. He bought a one-way bus ticket and crossed 3 state lines chasing a ghost. The bus station had looked almost hopeful from the window, but standing outside it now felt different. Too quiet, too sharp, like the whole city was watching him fail. Ethan adjusted the strap of his bag and checked his phone again, even though he already knew. Black screen. Dead. Perfect, he muttered, shoving it into his pocket. His wallet was still there. At least, it had been 30 seconds ago. He froze mid-step. Front pocket. Empty. Back pocket. Nothing. Duffel side pouch. Receipts. Gum. No wallet. His stomach dropped so fast it felt like missing a stair in the dark. No, seriously? He spun around, pulse kicking hard as panic clawed up his throat. The crowd from the bus stop was gone, scattered into cabs and late-night diners and apartment buildings with glowing windows. Whoever took it was already history. Cash, ID, debit card gone. Rain dripped down the back of his neck. His laugh came out thin and brittle. Okay, fine, cool. This is survivable. Except it didn't feel survivable. It felt like the city had reached into his pocket, smiled, and said, "Welcome to New Haven, idiot." He started walking because standing still felt worse, sneakers splashing through puddles that reflected skyscrapers like broken glass. Every block looked unfamiliar. Every corner somehow less safe than the last. His paper map, because apparently he was living like it was 2007, had dissolved into damp pulp in his hand. Great. Fantastic. He was officially lost in a city that felt too big, too loud, and somehow still suffocating. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. Ethan turned down a narrower street lined with brick buildings, hoping for a convenience store, a coffee shop, literally anything with lights and human decency. Instead, he got shadows and footsteps. At first, he told himself it was nothing, just coincidence. New York had made him paranoid before, but this wasn't New York, and paranoia didn't usually match your pace exactly half a block behind you. Ethan walked faster. The footsteps did too. His chest tightened. Don't panic. Maybe they're just going the same way. He turned a corner. So did they. Rainwater slid into his eyes as he glanced back, and there they were. 3 men. Hooded jackets. Unhurried. Not close enough to touch him. Just close enough to make his lungs forget how to work. One of them smiled. Ethan's stomach twisted. Okay, he whispered, voice shaking despite his best effort. Not ideal. Then headlights cut through the rain like a blade. A black car appeared out of nowhere, sleek and silent, stopping so sharply beside him it felt rehearsed. The passenger door swung open. Warm light spilled onto the wet pavement. And from inside, a deep voice, cold, calm, terrifyingly certain, said 5 words that changed everything. Get in if you want to live. Ethan's body moved before his pride could. 1 second he was standing in rain that felt like ice water and regret, and the next he was diving into a black leather seat that smelled faintly like cedar, clean cologne, and expensive decisions. The door slammed shut behind him with a heavy, final sound that made his pulse stutter. Then the car moved. Fast. Not reckless. Precise. Like the driver had done this before. Like escape was muscle memory. Ethan twisted in his seat, so quickly his duffel nearly toppled over. What the hell is happening? He blurted, breathless, shoving wet hair out of his face as neon lights streaked past the tinted windows. Behind them, the 3 men disappeared into rain and blurred headlights, swallowed whole by the city. For 1 wild second, Ethan considered unlocking the door and throwing himself back onto the sidewalk, because climbing into a stranger's car in a city that already felt like a bad decision was objectively insane. But then the driver spoke. Seatbelt. Just one word. Low. Sharp. Not loud, but somehow impossible to ignore. Ethan turned toward him fully for the first time and immediately understood why his nervous system had chosen panic. The man behind the wheel looked like danger had been handcrafted into human form. Late 20s, maybe. Dark hair brushed back like he did not have time for softness. A jawline sharp enough to cut glass. Broad shoulders beneath a charcoal coat that probably cost more than Ethan's entire suitcase. His hands were steady on the steering wheel, long fingers, silver watch, not a single wasted movement. And his eyes, God. Even in the fractured glow of traffic lights, they looked cold enough to freeze bad choices mid-thought. Did you just kidnap me? Ethan demanded, voice climbing despite his effort to sound brave and not like a damp emotional support disaster. The man did not even blink. If I kidnapped you, he said smoothly, turning onto another rain-slick avenue, you would not still have the option to be annoying. Ethan stared. Then, against all logic and self-preservation, a startled laugh escaped him. It was either laugh or fully unravel. Wow, he muttered. Good to know sarcasm survives in terrifying situations. The stranger finally glanced at him, brief but devastating, like being assessed by a very well-dressed storm. Damien Cross, he said. Not an introduction. A fact. Ethan blinked. Was that supposed to mean something to me? No, Damien replied. But your name means something to people who should not know you are here. Silence hit harder than thunder. Ethan's stomach twisted. What? Damien did not answer immediately, and somehow that was worse. Windshield wipers cut through rain in rhythmic sweeps, each pass, sharpening the city only long enough for Ethan to feel lost all over again. Towering buildings rose around them like steel giants. Alleyways flashed by. Corner stores. Flooded sidewalks. New Haven looked less like a place and more like a maze built to test weak people. Ethan swallowed hard. I do not know those guys. I know, Damien said. That is what makes this complicated. Ethan's fingers tightened around his soaked duffel strap. Then why were they following me? Damien's jaw flexed once, subtle but real. That, he said, voice quieter now, depends on what was in your mother's letter. Ethan froze so completely it felt like his heartbeat forgot its script. The letter. The one folded in plastic at the bottom of his bag. The one he had not shown anyone. The one mentioning his father, New Haven, and one cryptic line that had made no sense until right now. If anything feels wrong, trust the man with the black car. Ethan turned slowly, every instinct screaming louder than the storm outside. How do you know about that? For the first time, Damien's expression shifted. Not softer, not kinder, just heavier, like a truth had entered the car and refused to leave. Because, he said, as the gates of a hidden underground garage opened before them, your mother asked me to find you before they did. Ethan did not remember getting out of the car. 1 minute his brain was still snagged on your mother asked me like a scratched record, and the next he was standing inside what looked less like an apartment and more like the secret headquarters of someone who definitely had enemies and excellent taste. The underground garage opened into a private elevator, all steel walls and mirrored silence, carrying them upwards so smoothly it barely felt real. Ethan clutched his duffel like it contained the last surviving piece of sanity he had left. Maybe it did. Damien stood beside him, one hand in his coat pocket, the other holding Ethan's soaked paper map between two fingers like evidence from a regrettable life choice. You really came here with this? Damien asked, glancing at the half-dissolved scrap. Ethan, still emotionally ricocheting between panic and outrage, crossed his arms. Some of us do not travel with billionaire-level surveillance systems. Clearly, the elevator door slid open to reveal a loft so sleek and massive Ethan's brain briefly stopped functioning out of spite. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed New Haven in rain-drenched gold. Hardwood floors gleamed beneath soft amber lighting. A sunken living room stretched around a modern fireplace, and somewhere in the distance, jazz played quietly enough to feel accidental. It was beautiful in the kind of way that made Ethan instantly suspicious. Okay, he said slowly, stepping inside. This is either extremely reassuring or exactly where rich serial killers live. Damien removed his coat, draping it over a chair with irritating elegance. If I were planning to murder you, Ethan, I would not have spent 45 minutes rescuing you from amateur stalkers first. Ethan froze. You keep saying my name like we know each other. Damien's expression did not change, but something in the room did. A subtle shift. Like the air itself had straightened. Take off your shoes, Damien said instead. You are dripping on imported walnut. Ethan stared at him, offended on principle. I am having a psychological crisis. And I am protecting expensive flooring. We all have priorities. Ethan should have hated him. Honestly, maybe part of him already did. Damien was impossible, cold, evasive, annoyingly composed. But beneath the sharp edges and impossible cheekbones was something worse. Competence. The kind that made Ethan feel, for the first time since arriving in New Haven, like maybe he was not about to completely fall apart, which was deeply inconvenient. Ethan kicked off his shoes with all the dignity of a wet raccoon and stood awkwardly near the entrance. So what now? Damien walked to a sleek kitchen, grabbed a clean towel, and tossed it at Ethan's face with alarming precision. Now you stop looking like hypothermia with abandonment issues. Ethan yanked the towel down, scandalized. Did you just insult me while helping me? Yes. Rude. Dry your hair. Somehow, absurdly, Ethan did. Because apparently his survival instincts had now been replaced by Damien's voice. He rubbed at his rain-soaked curls while watching Damien move around the kitchen like he owned gravity. Coffee machine. First aid kit. Security panel. Every motion was deliberate, practiced. Like Ethan was not the first emergency Damien Cross had quietly rearranged his life around. That thought should not have mattered. It absolutely did. Damien returned holding a steaming mug and a small white envelope. Ethan's chest tightened instantly. He recognized his mother's handwriting before Damien even spoke. She gave me this 6 months ago, Damien said, setting both on the marble counter. She told me if you ever came to New Haven, I was to keep you safe long enough for you to decide whether you wanted the truth. Ethan's fingers trembled as he picked it up. You knew her. It was not a question. Damien's gaze held his, steady and unreadable and somehow heavier than before. Better than you realize. Ethan's breath caught. Rain traced silver down the windows behind him. The city stretched below, vast and glittering and dangerous. And somewhere between the storm outside and the letter in his shaking hands, Ethan understood something terrifying. Coming to New Haven had never been random. He had not gotten lost. He had been led. Ethan had imagined a lot of things about the truth. Maybe his father was dead. Maybe he was a washed-up con artist. Maybe he was just another coward with good hair and commitment issues. But nowhere, not once, in 22 years of private theories and quiet resentment, had Ethan imagined standing barefoot in a luxury loft, clutching a letter from his dead mother, while a devastatingly unreadable man watched him like the answer might break him. His fingers hesitated over the envelope flap. For one strange, ridiculous second, he considered not opening it. As if unopened truths could not hurt you. As if paper was not capable of detonating entire lives. You can wait, Damien said from across the kitchen, his voice quieter now, less command and more caution. Ethan glanced up sharply. Do not do that. Damien leaned against the marble counter, arms crossed. Do what? Sound considerate. Ethan said, throat tight. It is confusing. To Ethan's immense frustration. One corner of Damien's mouth almost smiled. Almost. Noted. Ethan exhaled shakily and opened the letter before his courage could file for divorce. Sweetheart, if you are reading this, then you did exactly what I was afraid you would do. You came looking. Ethan's breath caught, so hard it almost hurt. His mother's voice lived in her handwriting. Warm, elegant, slightly slanted, like every word had somewhere important to be. He kept reading. First, I need you to know this. I did not lie because I wanted to. I lied because I promised. The man you are searching for is real. He is dangerous to the wrong people and important to the right ones. But this has never been about whether he loved you. He did. This has always been about whether loving you would put you in danger. Ethan's hand shook. No, he whispered, though he did not know which part he was arguing with. Damien said nothing. The rain outside softened, tapping gently against glass like the city itself was listening. If Damien Cross found you, then my plan worked. Ethan's head snapped up so fast it almost made him dizzy. Excuse me. Damien did not move, did not blink, which somehow felt like confirmation and betrayal all at once. Ethan looked back down. Damien is not your enemy. no matter how much it may feel like he is keeping things from you. I trusted him with my life once. Now I am trusting him with yours." Ethan lowered the letter slowly, every emotion inside him colliding like a freeway pileup. "You knew," he said, voice dangerously soft. Damien's jaw tightened. "Some of it." Ethan laughed then, but it came out cracked around the edges. "Some of it." He dropped the letter onto the counter and stepped back, pacing once, because standing still suddenly felt impossible. "You picked me up in a black car during a storm, told me people were following me, somehow knew about my mother's letter, and conveniently forgot to mention she apparently hired you as my emotionally unavailable bodyguard." Damien's expression hardened, not angry, just braced. "I did not forget." "Then why did not you tell me?" The silence that followed was not empty. It was loaded, weighted. Damien pushed off the counter slowly, each word measured like stepping across thin ice. "Because your mother did not ask me to tell you everything immediately." Ethan stared. "She asked me to keep you alive long enough for you to choose how much truth you could handle." Ouch. That one landed in places Ethan had not emotionally child-proofed. "Wow," he said faintly. "That is somehow noble and infuriating. I get that a lot." Ethan turned away, pressing trembling fingers to his mouth as he tried, unsuccessfully, not to feel 16 different things at once. Grief, relief, fury, hope. The terrifying possibility that his entire life had not been abandoned, just protected from a distance he never agreed to. Then he noticed it. On the far bookshelf, tucked between architecture volumes and security reports, was a framed photograph. Old, slightly faded. His mother, younger and laughing in a way Ethan had almost forgotten, standing beside Damien. Not present-day Damien. Teenage Damien. Maybe 19. Taller, leaner, but unmistakably him. And beside them, half-cropped at the edge of the frame, was a man Ethan had never seen before, with Ethan's exact eyes. The room tilted. "Damien," Ethan whispered, not turning around this time because suddenly he was afraid to. "Why is there a picture of my mother in your house with my father?" Some silences do not feel empty. They feel like standing on railroad tracks, hearing something massive coming, and realizing too late that your whole life has been pointed in the wrong direction. Damien did not answer immediately, which somehow said everything and nothing all at once. Ethan stood frozen near the bookshelf, rain-muted city lights spilling across the faded photograph in his shaking hand. His mother looked radiant, younger than Ethan had ever known her, smiling with the kind of fearless joy grief always steals first. Beside her stood Damien, barely more than a teenager, awkward in expensive clothes, and clearly not yet weaponized into the terrifying man currently ruining Ethan's emotional stability. And there, partially cut off but unmistakable, was the stranger with Ethan's eyes. Same storm gray stare. Same crooked brow. Same impossible, devastating proof. "Talk." Ethan said the word. Sharper than he intended, though frankly not sharper than his current psychological state deserved. Damien exhaled once through his nose, slow and controlled, like a man choosing which truth would do the least damage. "Your father's name is Adrian Cole." Ethan's stomach dropped. A name, not a ghost, not a maybe. Real. He was my brother. The world did not exactly stop. It just misfired. Ethan blinked. Once. Twice. Because surely his ears had malfunctioned under stress. "I am sorry," Ethan said faintly. "You're what?" "My older brother," Damien repeated, voice steady but quieter now, stripped of some of its usual armor. "Which technically makes me your uncle." Ethan stared so hard it felt athletic. Then, because his brain had officially abandoned all standard coping procedures, he laughed. It was not a happy sound. More like if disbelief and sleep deprivation had a nervous breakdown together. "No," he said immediately, pacing backward. "Absolutely not. That is no. You do not get to drop surprise family trauma like it is a weather update." Damien did not flinch, which, honestly, was getting annoying. "I am aware the timing is difficult." "Difficult," Ethan repeated, scandalized. "I got robbed, chased through a city I do not understand, rescued by a human thunderstorm, and now you are telling me Batman is my uncle?" For the first time, Damien actually closed his eyes briefly, like patience was a finite resource Ethan was personally speedrunning. "I am not. Do not say not Batman," Ethan snapped. "You literally have a secret garage." A beat of silence. Then, somehow, impossibly, Damien's mouth twitched. Fair. Ethan hated that. Hated that humor still existed when his identity was actively being restructured. He turned away again, dragging both hands through his damp hair. So my father, your brother, where is he? That question changed everything. Damien's stillness sharpened, the kind that felt less like avoidance and more like impact. Missing, he said at last. One word, heavy enough to bruise. Ethan turned slowly. Missing, he repeated, softer now. As in gone. As in disappeared 12 years ago after uncovering something he was not supposed to. Damien crossed the room then, not too close, but enough that Ethan felt the gravity of him. Adrian was not absent because he did not love you. He vanished because there were people powerful enough to use anyone he loved against him. Ethan swallowed hard, anger and hope tangling so violently inside him he could barely separate them. So all this time, your mother believed hiding you was the only way to keep you safe. Ethan's voice cracked before he could stop it. And what? She just trusted I would be emotionally fine with that. Damien's expression shifted then, not colder. Sadder. Subtle, but real. No, he said quietly. She trusted you would survive it long enough to understand. Ouch. Again. Ethan looked down at the photograph, thumb brushing over his mother's smile. 12 years. His father missing. His mother gone. Damien, family. The city outside glittered like 1,000 secrets pretending to be lights. Why now? Ethan whispered. Why did she send me here now? Damien's jaw tightened, and for the first time since Ethan met him, he looked genuinely unsettled. Because, he said, eyes flicking toward the security monitors lining one wall. Whatever Adrian found. One screen suddenly flashed red. A silent alarm. Damien's entire posture changed. Sharp. Focused. Dangerous. They know you are here. The sound was almost polite. Just one soft chime from the far wall. But something about it changed the air so completely Ethan felt it before he understood it. Damien did not panic. Which, somehow, was worse. Panic would have been human. Panic would have been comforting. Damien simply turned his head toward the security wall, and in one horrifyingly elegant motion, the man who had been emotionally devastating 5 seconds ago became something else entirely. Focus sharpened every line of him. His shoulders squared. His gaze cooled into pure strategy. Ethan watched his newly discovered uncle cross the room like calm itself had teeth. Stay here, Damien said. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just absolute. Naturally, Ethan's first instinct was offense. You cannot just say that and expect me to. Ethan. Damien did not raise his voice, but Ethan stopped talking anyway. Which was honestly becoming a deeply concerning pattern. Damien tapped the monitor panel. Multiple camera feeds blinked awake across the wall, garage, lobby, private elevator, street entrance. Ethan's stomach twisted. For black SUVs had stopped outside the building. Men in dark suits stepped out, umbrellas barely shielding them from the rain. No weapons. No obvious threats. Somehow that felt worse. They looked organized. Intentional. Like people who did not need chaos to be dangerous. Who are they? Ethan whispered. Damien's jaw tightened. People who are very good at pretending they are not the problem. That is unsettlingly vague. Welcome to the family business. Ethan blinked. I am sorry, the what? Damien ignored that entirely, already moving toward a hidden panel near the fireplace. Of course there was a hidden panel. Ethan was beginning to suspect Damien's entire life was one long reveal. A sleek compartment slid open, exposing files, passports, cash, and enough technology to make Ethan's student loan debt feel even more insulting. Damien grabbed an earpiece and slid it in. Mara. A woman's voice crackled instantly through the room, calm and clipped. They arrived 3 minutes earlier than projected. Either someone tracked the bus station faster than expected, or your nephew is catastrophically unlucky. Ethan stared. Did your spy friend just insult me? Yes, Damien said, checking something metallic and entirely too sophisticated looking before deciding against it and shutting the compartment. She likes you. I feel unsupported. Focus, both of you, Mara said dryly. Damien, South Stairwell is clear for now. You have a 15-minute gap before this becomes significantly more annoying. Ethan's head snapped between the speakers like a confused golden retriever. South Stairwell? Gap. Why are we speaking like this is normal? Damien turned, and for one fractured second, Ethan saw something beneath all the steel. Not fear. Concern. Real, immediate, deeply personal concern. Because, Damien said, stepping closer, right now, your existence is tied to something people have spent 12 years trying to bury. Ethan's pulse stumbled. What does that mean? Damien held his gaze. It means your father did not disappear empty-handed. The room seemed to contract around those words. Rain against glass. Security monitors flickering. Ethan's own breathing too loud in his ears. He left something behind, Damien continued. Information. Insurance. Proof. Ethan's voice came out smaller than he wanted. Proof of what? Damien hesitated. And that hesitation, more than the alarms, more than the SUVs, more than the terrifyingly competent secret agent ant in his ceiling speakers, scared Ethan most. Proof, Damien said finally, that some of the most powerful people in this city built their empire by destroying anyone who threatened to expose them, including your father. Oh, that was bigger than anticipated. Ethan laughed once, thin and disbelieving. So, just to recap my evening, my dad is not a deadbeat. He is a missing whistleblower. My mother was apparently running a long-term survival strategy. You are my secret billionaire uncle, and now rich villains are outside. Damien blinked once. That is not the worst summary. I hate that this is my life. A sudden mechanical click echoed near the penthouse entrance. Not forced. Accessed. Damien's entire expression hardened. Change of plan, he said immediately. They are inside the building. Ethan's blood went cold. You said 15 minutes. Mara's voice returned, noticeably sharper now. I was wrong. Damien grabbed Ethan's wrist, not rough, just certain, and pulled him toward a concealed door Ethan had not even noticed behind the bookshelf. Rule number 1, Damien said, pressing his palm to the scanner. Do exactly what I say. The hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Ethan barely had time to process the fact that his life had officially become a conspiracy thriller before Damien added, voice low and devastatingly serious. And Ethan, no matter what you hear, do not come back upstairs. The staircase swallowed light fast. 1 second Ethan was stumbling downward with Damien's command still ringing in his skull, and the next he was standing in a narrow concrete corridor lit only by dim floor LEDs that glowed like runway lights for nervous breakdowns. The hidden door sealed shut above him with a whisper-quiet click, and just like that, the penthouse, the rain, the impossible windows, and Damien himself were gone. Ethan stood there breathing too hard in air that smelled faintly like dust, steel, and secrets that had been expensive to keep. Okay, he whispered to absolutely no one, clutching his duffel like it might contain coping skills. This is fine. Fine is a thing people survive. It was not fine. Not remotely. A soft crackle sounded overhead. You pace when you panic, Mara's voice said through a hidden speaker somewhere above. Ethan physically jumped. Jesus Christ. Not him, she replied. Still me. Ethan pressed a hand to his chest. Do all of you communicate like haunted Bluetooth devices? Only on weekdays. Ethan would have appreciated the humor more if his life was not actively unraveling. Where am I? Safe, Mara said. For the moment. That is not a location. No, she agreed. It is the best you are getting. Ethan groaned, dragging both hands down his face. I cannot believe my family tree apparently includes emotionally unavailable spies. Former intelligence analyst, she corrected. And for the record, I am very available. I am talking to you right now. Before Ethan could formulate a response dripping with the appropriate amount of sarcasm, something thudded faintly above. Footsteps. Voices. Muffled through layers of steel and concrete, but unmistakable. Ethan froze so completely, even his anxiety seemed to hold its breath. What is happening? He whispered. Mara's answer came instantly. Damien is buying time. The phrase should not have hit so hard. Buying time. Not fighting. Not escaping. Staying. For him. Ethan sank slowly onto the bottom stair, pulse loud in his ears. This was insane. He had known Damien for what? 2 hours? Less. And yet somehow, terrifyingly, Ethan already understood one thing with bone-deep certainty. Damien Cross did not make casual promises. If he said stay hidden, it was because he intended to carry the risk himself. That realization should have been reassuring. Instead, it made something sharp and unfamiliar twist in Ethan's chest. Guilt. Fear. Something dangerously close to trust. Why is he doing this? Ethan asked quietly. Mara was silent for just a beat too long. Because he failed Adrian once, she said finally. Ethan's head lifted. What? Your father? Her voice, usually razor dry, softened around the edges. 12 years ago, Damien was supposed to get Adrian out before everything collapsed. He was 19, overconfident, and one step too late. Adrian disappeared. Damien never forgave himself. Ethan forgot how to breathe for a second. So this is guilt. No, Mara said, sharper now. It started that way. What he feels about you is nothing like guilt, and very much alive. Dad, some moments are so impossible your brain does not reject them. It's simply blue screens. Ethan stood frozen at the end of the corridor, every thought, memory, and carefully constructed abandonment issue crashing headfirst into the living, breathing man standing 10 feet away. Adrian Cole was older than the photograph. Of course he was. Time had carved itself into him in ways Ethan felt instantly and painfully. Silver-threaded through dark hair. His face was sharper now, leaner, marked less by age than by survival. But none of that mattered. Because his eyes, those impossible storm gray eyes, were Ethan's. Or maybe Ethan's were his. Same shape, same intensity, same devastating proof that this was not a hallucination brought on by emotional overload and possible dehydration. No, Ethan whispered, though his voice lacked conviction. No, you do not get to just appear in a murder basement after 22 years. Adrian's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but something heartbreakingly close. That sounds fair. Ethan hated that answer instantly. Hated how normal his father sounded. How calm. Like this was not the kind of moment that should come with thunder, violins, or at minimum a medically supervised breakdown. I am serious. Ethan snapped, because anger was easier than whatever this unbearable cracking feeling in his chest was. You cannot say one cryptic sentence and expect me to. Ethan. Adrian said his name the way people say something fragile they have already lost once. Soft. Certain. Reverent enough to ruin him. Ethan stopped breathing. Not literally. Just emotionally. I know, Adrian said, taking one careful step forward. I know I do not deserve 5 seconds of your trust, let alone forgiveness. That is wildly correct. Adrian nodded once, accepting that like a man familiar with painful truths. But if you came here, then Evelyn's plan failed exactly the way she predicted. Ethan blinked hard. Mom had a plan for everything, apparently. She usually did. There it was again. That unbearable thing. Familiarity. Grief wrapped in affection. Ethan's throat tightened so sharply it hurt. She died, he said, and suddenly his voice sounded younger. Smaller. And you were not there. Adrian flinched. Tiny. Barely visible. But real. I know. 2 words. No excuses. No defensive speech. Just grief. Naked and devastating. I found out 3 days too late. Oh, that was not fair. Ethan had spent years building a version of this man he could hate. A villain was simpler. A coward was easier. But this worn out, haunted man standing in hidden shadows looking like regret had kept him alive? Inconvenient. Deeply, deeply inconvenient. Then where were you? Ethan asked, and this time the question broke on the way out. Adrian exhaled slowly, glancing once toward the stairwell above them like danger had never really stopped. Buried, he said quietly. Just not dead. Ethan stared. Adrian leaned against the concrete wall like the weight of 12 missing years had bones. The night I disappeared, I found proof that Halcyon Group, the people upstairs right now, had built half this city through blackmail, stolen tech, and making inconvenient people vanish. Ethan's pulse pounded. Halcyon. They were investors, Adrian said bitterly. Philanthropists. Political darlings. And underneath all that, predators with better tailoring. Honestly, Ethan would have appreciated the sarcasm more if his life was not imploding. I tried to expose them. Damien tried to get me out. We failed. Above them, a distant metallic sound echoed. Adrian's expression sharpened instantly. No, we were separated. Ethan's chest tightened. You were alive this whole time. Alive is a generous word. Adrian's voice softened. Hidden. Watching when I could. Staying away because every lead pointed back to you. Ethan laughed then, but it cracked straight down the middle. So your parenting strategy was espionage? My parenting strategy, Adrian said, and for the first time his composure broke, revealing something raw and wrecked beneath it, was making sure you had the chance to grow up. Ouch. Again. Before Ethan could respond, or emotionally combust, the hidden speaker above hissed alive. Mara. Urgent. We have a problem. Adrian and Ethan both looked up. Please tell me this family has one normal Tuesday. Ethan muttered. Damien's cover is blown, Mara said. And Halcyon did not come here just for Ethan. A beat. Heavy. Terrible. They know Adrian is alive. If Ethan's life had been a normal disaster before, it officially upgraded into something far more specific. Generational conspiracy with bonus emotional damage. They know you are alive, Mara repeated through the hidden speaker. Each word clipped with the kind of urgency that suggested everyone's margin for error had just evaporated. Adrian swore softly under his breath, not dramatic, not panicked, just deeply tired, like a man who had spent 12 years outrunning monsters only to hear they finally found the front door. Ethan, meanwhile, was beginning to suspect the universe owed him financial compensation. Okay, he said, holding up both hands because surely this level of psychological whiplash required structure. Pause. Tiny pause. You are my father. Damien is my uncle. Evil rich people are upstairs. Mom apparently ran my life like a posthumous escape room. I feel like I deserve at least one full sentence of explanation before we all die of stress. Adrian, to his credit, actually looked like he wanted to laugh. You sound exactly like your mother when she was furious. I am not sure that is comforting. It is not supposed to be. A metallic thud echoed faintly from above. Closer now. Deliberate. Ethan's pulse climbed. Adrian's expression changed instantly. That same family trait, apparently. 1 second human, the next sharpened by strategy. Mara, status. Damien bought you 6 minutes, she replied. Then one of Halcyon's executives arrived personally. Adrian went still in a way Ethan immediately hated. Which one? Silence. Then, Lucien Vale. The name landed like it had weight. Adrian's jaw flexed. That is bad. Ethan crossed his arms, deeply offended by everyone's commitment to terrifying vagueness. I would love for someone to define bad before I combust. Adrian looked at him then, really looked, like deciding how much innocence he could ethically destroy in under a minute. Lucien Vale was my business partner, he said. And your godfather. Ethan's soul left his body briefly. My what? Formerly, Adrian clarified. Heavy emphasis on former. You people really need to stop assigning terrifying men surprise family titles. Ethan paced once, because standing still was no longer an option in this economy. So let me guess. Godfather turned evil corporate overlord. Adrian's mouth tightened. Lucien did not start evil. He started ambitious. Then he learned power protects itself better than people do. Ouch. Disturbingly philosophical for a man hiding in a bunker corridor. Mara's voice cut in again. Less trauma processing, more movement. Lucien will search below if Damien cannot redirect him. Ethan froze. Wait. Damien is up there alone, with your ex-best friend supervillain? Adrian's gaze did not waver. Damien has been standing between this family and disaster since he was 19. There was something in his voice then. Pride. Guilt. History. Ethan swallowed hard around the sharp, inconvenient thing in his chest. Damien. Cold, infuriating, emotionally constipated Damien had spent years protecting people who were not even sure they could trust him. And tonight, after knowing Ethan in person for approximately one catastrophic evening, he was still upstairs risking everything. Why? The question hit harder now. Not obligation. Not just guilt. Something more dangerous. Choice. There is another way out, Adrian said suddenly, moving toward the rusted door. An old service tunnel connected to the original subway grid. If we move now, no, Ethan's own voice surprised him. So did the certainty in it. Adrian turned sharply. Ethan. No. Ethan repeated, pulse hammering but spine somehow steady. I spent my whole life being left behind for my own good. I am not doing that again while Damien stays up there alone. Adrian stared at him. Then, to Ethan's horror, he looked impressed. That, Adrian said softly, was exactly your mother's worst trait. I am choosing to take that as a compliment. Another crash. Louder. Followed by something that made Ethan's blood go cold. Not fear. Damien's voice. Faint through the structure. Calm as ever. If Lucien wants the truth, Damien said somewhere above them. He can ask me himself. Then a second voice. Answered. Smooth. Familiar in the worst possible way. I was hoping you would say that, little brother. Ethan stopped breathing. Adrian's face went white. Because only one sentence in the English language could possibly be worse right now. Lucien Vale was not just the enemy. He was family too. There are family reunions. And then there is hearing your secret supervillain godfather call your emotionally repressed uncle little brother through the ceiling of a hidden bunker while your long-lost father visibly questions every life choice that led here. Ethan stood absolutely still, which was impressive considering his internal organs were essentially tap dancing. No, he said faintly, because apparently denial was still his brain's preferred coping mechanism. Nope, I reject this plot twist. Adrian, unfortunately, looked like a man who had run out of plot twist immunity years ago. Lucien was never supposed to find this place. I would love, Ethan said, voice climbing with the precision of a doomed roller coaster, for literally one person in this bloodline to stop saying sentences like that. Above them, the muffled sound of footsteps moved across reinforced floors with chilling calm. Not chaos, not panic, precision. Ethan was beginning to understand that truly dangerous people did not need to shout. They simply arrived. Mara's voice cut through the speaker, lower now, tighter. Lucien bypassed the West security wing. He knew where to look. Adrian's jaw hardened. Of course he did. Ethan blinked. Okay, I hate asking this, but how? Adrian hesitated just long enough to confirm Ethan was going to hate the answer. Because, Adrian said grimly, Lucien helped design this building. Silence. Ethan stared. Then, because his sanity was hanging by a thread and sarcasm was all he had left, he whispered, cool. Love that. The murder mansion was an inside job. Adrian grabbed Ethan's shoulder then. Not rough, but urgent. Listen to me. Lucien is not just dangerous because he is powerful. He is dangerous because he believes he is right. Oh good. A morally complex villain. Exactly what this evening needed. When Halcyon started, Adrian continued, guiding Ethan toward the rusted tunnel door. It was supposed to expose corruption from the inside. Me, Damien, Lucien, we built it together. Ethan's head snapped up. Wait, you founded Halcyon? Adrian flinched. The original version. Before Lucien turned it into something else. Something else was apparently code for dystopian empire with expensive cufflinks. So this whole thing, Ethan said, gesturing wildly at the bunker, the speakers, the inherited trauma, is basically a family startup gone catastrophically wrong. That is, oversimplified, Adrian admitted, but not inaccurate. Above them, Lucien's voice echoed again, smoother now, disturbingly patient. Damien, he called, as though discussing brunch plans and not psychological warfare. You were always the practical one. Give me Adrian and the boy, and I will let nostalgia keep this civil. Ethan's blood ran cold. The boy, not Ethan, not nephew, not godson. A variable, a problem. Damien's reply came instantly, every word sharp enough to draw blood without ever raising volume. You do not get to use family when it suits you. Something cracked upstairs. Glass, maybe. Or Ethan's remaining emotional resilience. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, and for the first time, Ethan saw it, not fear. Grief. He used to love us, Adrian said so quietly Ethan almost missed it. That is what makes this worse. Ouch. Apparently devastating family commentary was genetic too. Mara's voice returned, urgent now. Damien stalling, but Lucien brought the board archive team. Adrian went pale. No, Ethan was officially exhausted by everyone else understanding horrifying things before he did. Can someone please explain before I start charging consultation fees? Adrian turned, and this time there was no cushioning the blow. Your father did not just hide evidence, he said. He hid the master archive. Ethan blinked. The what? Every document. Every account. Every name. Enough to destroy Halcyon permanently. Ethan's pulse thundered. And where is it? Adrian looked him dead in the eyes. Your mother encoded its access key in the lullaby she used to sing to you. Ethan forgot how breathing worked. I am sorry. Lucien thinks if he gets you, Adrian said, voice breaking around urgency now, he gets the archive. Above them, something heavy slammed. Mara swore. They are breaching lower access. Adrian shoved the tunnel door open fully. Cold air rushed from the darkness beyond. Run, Ethan. But for the second time that night, Ethan did something profoundly inconvenient for everyone's survival plan. He stayed exactly where he was. Because through the speaker, Damien's voice came again, strained for the first time. Ethan, just his name. Nothing else. And somehow, impossibly, it sounded less like an order and more like fear. There is a specific kind of fear that does not scream. It sharpens. It turns your blood to ice and your thoughts to glass, and suddenly, horrifyingly, everything becomes clear. Ethan had spent his entire life being protected by omission, hidden, redirected, lied to for his own good. But hearing Damien say his name like that, strained, low, threaded with something so unfamiliar it barely sounded like him, snapped whatever fragile obedience Ethan had left clean in half. Fear. Damien was afraid. Not of Lucien. Not of Halcyon. For him. And somehow that was the one thing Ethan could not tolerate. Absolutely not. Ethan said. Already backing away from the tunnel Adrian had shoved open like escape was still an option. Adrian's expression shifted instantly from haunted father to deeply exasperated parent. Ethan. No, Ethan pointed upward like an emotionally unstable revolutionary. You do not get to vanish for 12 years, reappear in a bunker, and then immediately start making unilateral life choices for me. This is not about control. It literally always is. Ethan snapped, voice cracking around every unresolved abandonment issue in his body. Mom decided. You decided. Damien decided. I am done being the family group project everyone manages behind my back. Adrian stared at him. And to Ethan's immense irritation, there it was again, that flicker of pride. You really are Evelyn's son. I would like that engraved somewhere less stressful. Above them, another metallic crash reverberated through the hidden corridor, louder this time. Mara's voice burst through the speaker, stripped of nearly all sarcasm. I need everyone to stop processing trauma and start moving now. Ethan ignored her completely, because apparently poor survival instincts were hereditary too. How do I use it? Adrian blinked. Use what? The key, Ethan said, already pacing. The lullaby. Mom did not hide the archive in me, so I could die confused in a tunnel. Adrian's entire face changed. Not because Ethan was wrong. Because Ethan was right. Ethan. No, seriously, less ominous whispering, more actionable information. Mara actually sighed over the speaker. I like him. This is not the time, Adrian muttered. It is exactly the time, Ethan shot back. Lucien wants me because I am useful, right? Fine. Let me be useful. For one suspended second, everything held still. Adrian looked at his son, not as something fragile, not as collateral, as choice. And maybe that was what finally did it. Your mother's lullaby, Adrian said carefully, was never just a song. It was a cipher. Notes correspond to dates. Pauses mark account branches. She embedded the archive map into melody. Ethan stared. My mother turned bedtime into encryption? Adrian's exhausted smile was heartbreakingly real. Your mother was terrifyingly smart. Honestly, that tracked. Ethan closed his eyes. Rain. Lavender shampoo. Warm hands. A soft voice in the dark after nightmares. He had not heard the song in years, but memory is strange like that. Some things do not disappear. They wait. Hush now, little star. Ethan whispered slowly, the first line trembling out of him before he could second-guess it. Above them, everything changed. Silence. Then Mara, suddenly very still. Oh my God. Adrian's head snapped toward the hidden wall monitor. A dormant screen flickered alive. Numbers began populating automatically. Coordinates. Accounts. Names. Thousands of files waking like ghosts. Ethan's pulse stopped. I did that. Yes, Mara breathed. And unfortunately, so did Halcyon. Ethan's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Adrian was already moving, grabbing Ethan's arm. It means Lucien just got confirmation the archive is real. Too late. Upstairs, Lucien's voice rolled through the speaker system now, smooth as polished poison. Well, he said, almost impressed. There you are. Every screen in the corridor lit at once. Not surveillance anymore. A direct feed. Lucien Vale stood in Damien's penthouse, elegant as sin in a silver tie, one hand resting against the back of Damien's chair like they were discussing inheritance over dinner instead of betrayal over ruins. Damien looked furious, which, on him, somehow looked quieter than most people's panic. You always were Evelyn's masterpiece, Ethan, Lucien said, looking directly into the camera. Now be a good boy and come upstairs. Then Damien spoke, voice colder than Ethan had ever heard it. Do not you dare. Lucien smiled. Interesting. A beat. Cruel and deliberate. He really does love you, does not he? And for the first time all night. Damien did not deny it. Some truths do not explode when they surface. They detonate quietly, in the space behind your ribs, where denial used to live. Ethan did not breathe. For one impossible, shattered second, the entire world narrowed to Damien's face on that screen. Sharp, furious, devastatingly unguarded. He really does love you, does not he? Lucien's voice still echoed like smoke, poisonous and elegant. And Damien, who treated vulnerability like a hostile takeover, said nothing. No denial, no cold deflection, no sarcastic redirection, just silence, which, somehow, was louder than anything Ethan had heard all night. Oh, Mara said softly through the speaker, sounding for once like sarcasm had genuinely abandoned her. Well, that explains a lot. Ethan's entire nervous system short-circuited. I am sorry, he said faintly, because apparently emotional collapse was now a full-time job. Can we circle back to that after we survive? Adrian, to his credit, looked equally alarmed by both Halcyon and feelings. Agreed. But Ethan barely heard him, because suddenly, horrifyingly, every moment since the bus station rearranged itself with brutal clarity. Damien's immediate arrival. The way he knew Ethan's name before introductions mattered. The hidden room. The relentless protection. The impossible patience. The way Damien always positioned himself. Between Ethan and danger like it was instinct instead of obligation. Oh no. Oh, deeply inconvenient no. This was not guilt. This was not duty. This was something far worse. Something chosen. That is, aggressively unfair timing. Ethan muttered, pressing both hands to his face for one catastrophic second. Upstairs, Lucien smiled like a man who collected weaknesses and wore custom suits. Now, he said smoothly, since we are all finally done pretending this is merely political. Ethan, come upstairs. Voluntarily. Or I start dismantling the things your mother died protecting one file at a time. Ethan froze. Adrian's voice sharpened instantly. Do not. I know. Ethan snapped, though his voice shook. I know. But did he? Because this was the problem with loving people, even accidentally, even inconveniently. Their pain became leverage. Lucien understood that. Damien understood that. And now, against all personal preference, Ethan did too. Mara's voice cut in, rapid now. Wait. Archive sequence still syncing. Ethan, if you complete the full lullaby, the master release protocol could trigger. Adrian went still. Evelyn built a dead man switch. Of course she did, Mara said. I am honestly offended any of you are surprised. Ethan blinked at the screen of cascading files. So if I finish the song, Adrian's face shifted from horror to reluctant awe. Every document goes public. Every account, every name, every crime, Mara confirmed. Halcyon burns permanently. Upstairs, Lucien's smile vanished. Do not. Oh, finally. A useful reaction. Ethan straightened slowly, something inside him locking into place for the first time all night. Fear was still there. Grief too. Confusion. Approximately 17 family betrayals. But beneath all that, choice. His choice. You know, Ethan said, staring directly into the nearest camera, voice unsteady but growing sharper with every word. My whole life. People kept deciding what I could handle. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, like he already knew where this was going. Ethan, Mom hid me. Dad left me. Damien protected me. You manipulated me. Ethan's gaze stayed fixed on Lucien's image. Everybody made choices for me. Then, for the first time, Ethan smiled, and it looked enough like Evelyn to make Adrian physically stop breathing. So I think it is time I make one for myself. Ethan, wait, Lucien started. Ethan did not. Softly, clearly, with his mother's voice stitched into memory and grief and love, he sang. Dream now, little star. The dark forgets your name. The corridor erupted. Every monitor flashed white. Phones. Servers. Screens upstairs. Data poured outward like floodwater through broken gates. Account ledgers. Board recordings. Names. Judges. Senators. CEOs. Halcyon's empire did not crack. It ruptured. Mara actually laughed. Oh, I love this family. Lucian's expression transformed, not rage. Terror. Real, unpolished terror. What have you done? Ethan's pulse thundered, but his answer came steady. Well, my mother taught me. Upstairs, alarms screamed. Emergency systems triggered. The building entered lockdown. And then Damien's voice cut through the chaos. Fierce, breathless, alive. Ethan. The hidden stairwell door above them unlocked with a violent mechanical snap. Adrian grabbed Ethan's arm. We move. Now. But before they could, Damien appeared at the top of the stairs. Tie gone. Composure fractured. Eyes locked directly on Ethan like the world had narrowed to one surviving miracle. He looked wrecked. Furious. Relieved. Human. You absolute disaster. Damien breathed. Then he crossed 6 steps in 2 seconds, grabbed Ethan's face like confirming reality, and said the one thing Ethan never saw coming. Do not ever do that again, because I cannot lose you too. The first thing Ethan realized was that survival felt nothing like victory. Victory should have sounded cleaner, sharper. Instead, it sounded like emergency alarms bleeding through steel walls, distant shouting upstairs, Mara swearing creatively through hidden speakers, and Damien Cross breathing like he had personally outrun death just to make sure Ethan was still stupid enough to be alive. Damien's hands were still framing Ethan's face, warm and unshakably real, his storm-dark eyes scanning him with the kind of frantic precision people usually reserve for bomb threats or miracles. I am fine, Ethan said. Automatically, because apparently lying under pressure was another inherited trait. Damien's stare somehow became even more offended. You triggered a multinational corporate collapse from a bunker. In my defense, Ethan said, slightly breathless, I had excellent maternal guidance. Adrian made a noise that sounded suspiciously like exhausted laughter. Definitely Evelyn's son. Somewhere above them, security systems continued locking down floor by floor. Halcyon was not just exposed. It was imploding. News alerts had already started flooding every connected screen. Federal investigations, leaked archives, financial crimes, political corruption. Lucian Vale's empire was not dying quietly. Good. We have approximately 4 minutes before every private contractor Lucian ever bribed realizes fleeing is preferable to prison, Mara announced. So if anyone would like to continue the emotional family reunion, I strongly recommend doing it while moving. She really does not believe in soft moments, does she? Ethan muttered. No. Damien and Adrian said in perfect unison. Honestly, disturbing. Damien finally lowered his hands. The one remained at Ethan's shoulder like his nervous system physically refused full detachment. Service tunnel. East exit, Damien ordered, already shifting back into tactical mode. But something had changed now. Subtly. Irrevocably. His voice was still sharp. Still commanding. Yet beneath it lived something Ethan had never heard before. Relief. The kind that sounded suspiciously like love stripped of its last hiding place. Ethan's heart, deeply unhelpful as always, noticed immediately. You know, Ethan said as they moved through the tunnel, because apparently near death had not improved his self-preservation. For someone emotionally constipated, that confession upstairs was extremely inconveniently timed. Damien nearly walked into a pipe. Adrian actually choked. Even Mara went silent for half a beat, which frankly felt historic. Damien did not look back. Now is not the time. Oh, so there was a confession. Ethan. Interesting. Ethan continued, because chaos was apparently his love language now. Very interesting choice of silence. Damien stopped so abruptly Ethan nearly collided with him. In the dim tunnel light, with alarms echoing and their entire world reconstructing itself in real time, Damien turned. Really turned. All composure gone. No billionaire armor. No strategist. Just Damien, wrecked, furious, terrifyingly honest. You want timing? He said, voice low enough to silence everything in Ethan at once. Fine. Here it is. The moment your mother called me 6 months ago, I knew if you walked into this city, I would do whatever it took to keep you breathing. Then you arrived, and somehow, his jaw tightened, like truth itself fought him on the way out. Somehow protecting you stopped feeling like responsibility. Oh, that was significantly worse than Ethan's emotional stability required. Adrian, to his immense credit, immediately kept walking. I am going ahead, he announced. Because this conversation feels like something therapy should supervise. Mara's delighted laugh crackled overhead. I knew it. Ethan, meanwhile, had officially forgotten basic motor function. So, he said brilliantly, you aggressively cared first. Damien looked at him like patience was a myth. I am in love with you, Ethan. Well then, there it was. No explosions. No dramatic music. Just 7 devastating words in a concrete tunnel beneath a collapsing empire. And somehow, that felt big.